in this moment, we are starting to record the session, and the recording will be put on YouTube in order to share this interesting moment of training. So Lorena and Ilaria, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Elena. And thank you everyone for being here with us. We really like the possibility of interacting because interaction is and relationship is something that we value in our center. It is at the basis of our practice. So we are going to share a presentation with you. So this will hopefully make it easier for everyone to follow what we're saying. And we can use a variety of ways to interact. You can raise your hand and speak. We really very much like questions because answering questions is going to make us able to clarify things that may not be clear for everyone.
So let's share our screen. Welcome to everyone.
And yeah, I am Ilaria, by the way. So, and
I'm Lorena.
Lorena. And okay, as Elena said, CADMI, which is the acronym for the name of our anti-violence center, is the first center, feminist anti-violence center.
No.
Sorry, little problem with the presentation. Okay, yeah, that's the one. Okay, here we are. And CADMI was formally born in 1986, but our history goes back in time to the times when women started talking to each other, which is the title of a great recent movie, very important movie, in the 1960s and 70s with awareness raising meetings. Our methodology and the recognition of what violence against women is and the naming of certain behaviors as violence goes back to those women talking to each other, finding each other. And so the centers were not born immediately, but they find their origins in those meetings and in spaces that were dedicated to finding freedom and autonomy for women, free expression, so the possibility of saying what we see and we know to be violence. Therefore, the recognition of the fact that there were patriarchal conditioning that were not allowing women to recognize women as, violence as such, and that those conditionings were based on norms and were creating oppression. And this oppression, of course, was what characterized relationships between men and women. The roots of our centers, in particular in our country, can be found in the feminist meetings from the 1970s, 60s actually, because Daniela Pellegrini was holding the first awareness raising meetings starting in 1963. She is now about 85 years old and is still fighting for women's freedom. There were feminist collectives and associations such as UDI, Unione Donne Italiane, Italian Women Union, which is our more direct origin. So by talking to each other, women created new spaces, and these spaces were physical. Of course, it was the meetings, but it was really the possibility that would be moving from one woman to the other, which is what is happening today and what makes the presence and the existence and the practice of our centers a political moment that goes beyond what happens in the meeting one woman with us, because that woman's freedom is something that then reverberates on an entire society. So we believe that relationship, and we will really go into detail about relationship among women today, because relationship is something really transgressive. Patriarchy lives on the destruction of that relationship, the possibility of relationship, especially among women. Okay, so I was saying the audio went away for a moment, that the relationship among women is really a very transgressive act, and is what allows us to question patriarchy and its violence against women. Okay, we can move to the next.
DIRE, Women's Network Against Violence, is our network, and we helped to found it after many years of informal activism. It was formally established in 2008. Today, we are 82 organizations with more than 100 anti-violence centers and more than 50 shelter houses. Now, we prepare a few data related to 2021. I'm sorry, but 2022 data are not ready, not yet. But here we can see that in this year, the women who have approached one of our centers are about 21,000, 67%, about 14,000 are women who have approached an anti-violence center for the first time. 26%, that means that corresponds about 5,500 are foreign women, and 2% are migrant women or asylum seekers.
So getting back to our center, which was at the origin, the start of the network, together with the other first centers that started in Italy, in other big cities such as Bologna and Rome. And also there were centers in southern Italy. So our center, as I said, started in 1986 with the first, it was initially a telephone number that women could call, because inside UDI, what had emerged was that women needed to meet other women, to talk to other women, to try and find out ways to get out of violence. And since that year, we have welcomed and listened to more than 36,000 women. So as you can tell, it's roughly around 1,000 women every year. And in 1991, then we realized, I mean, when I say we, it's a continuity between the women who started, who are still present in part in our center, and the women such as myself and Lorena. I arrived 10 years ago. So we have also shelters, and in these shelters, we have hosted more than 800 women who needed a safe place to get out of violence. What is particular about our center is that society tended and still tends today to respond to the needs of minors, the children, and there were somehow answers. We may talk about the principles of those answers later, but there were centers for women with children. There were no answers for women without children. So this is why it became very specific to us to have shelters for women without children. For some reason, they were thinking perhaps it's easy. It's never easy to leave violence. You do it with someone else, and it's not easy for women without children, not just for women with children. So going to 2022, last year, we responded to 974 requests from women in distress. This, as you can tell, is roughly our average number. And so we usually have telephone meetings with these women. Sometimes we see them, and then with 589 of them, we started or continued a project of getting out of violence. And of these women, 263 are foreign women, and 54 of them are migrant women and asylum seekers. And it's very important to notice that, you know, we see women really from, you know, not just Italian women, not just women with a nationality, Italian nationality. They're all at different stages in their life, different ages. You're all aware of these data, but I think it's very important to remark that, you know, violence really is across all women. It's definitely intersectional. And we have hosted 16 women in our secret homes, and one home, we will go in more detail about that particular project in another meeting with you. It's a home for migrant women seeking asylum, all with refugee status. So next slide. We will now get a little bit more, with Lorena.
Yeah, so let's move and display you how we work in our center. As you can see, we prepare a diagram to display better to you, and we put the woman, of course, in the center because she is the one who act, and so consequently move and activate all the mechanism, all the system. And how they can find us, they can call us or show up directly in CADMI. But it's important to say that the first operator they will meet are the ones of the reception group, what we call frontline and counseling area, of which me and Ilaria are part of. And what we offer is a deeper, active and free listening in which the woman can explain us what is going on and what they need. Of course, we have also a legal area with colleagues, lawyers, both civil and criminal. They can offer a free consultation to women who ask for, and so they can explain how it works if they decide to separate, if there are children, or if they decide to report or not. And we have as well as a psychological area with psychotherapists and art therapists. We can offer therapeutical session for free, of course, and all the sessions are very specific experts of violence and of violence system, how it works, what that means, which are the consequences for the women, psychological health and physical health too. We have, as Ilaria already told, shelter houses. And few years ago, we made that choice to host women alone without children, because in those years were not due to the lack of facilities for this kind of women. And we can host, I think, more or less 25 women, and it depends. We have two different projects. One is for every woman, and one is specifically dedicated to asylum seeker and migrant women. But our colleagues on the next meeting on 20 March will explain better. Then we have, of course, a work-related area. Our colleagues can meet women and prepare a CV, but not only, also make with them coaching directly dedicated to the work area. And also in this area, we practice the desire and what they really want to become, because a lot of women come here and they have a bachelor, for example, but they were not able to find a special job, a very good job, and so they have just to have a job to pay, you know, for the house or for the children, but not something very satisfying. So our work-related area is dedicated to that, to transform possibilities and desire in reality. Then we have prevention projects in schools and awareness and educational projects on the themes of violence, of course, to businesses, associations, consulate unions, and so on. And we understand that it's very important, this area, because it's the only way for us to share our experience and to speak about violence with everyone, institution includes.
Okay, so now we'd like to get, a bit more into what is, we think, the specificity of the way we do what we do, because it's obvious that right now a lot of agencies are trying to respond to violence against women and to women who are seeking to get out of that violence. And so I will start and we will try to explain, but I ask Anna if there are any questions. I think questions, specifying even more are important because we don't know what your experiences are. So it's important for us that you ask us questions about what we are saying. So what you see here, goals, woman is central. You saw it, graphically. It means to us that a woman's desire and, where she wants to go is very, very important. It is absolutely central because she is getting out of a situation in which control has been imposed. And we know that control is everywhere in society. So it's very difficult to have goals and objectives when you are under control. And this is why our centers want to become a place of freedom. So what a woman wants for her life to us is important. And everything that we do has as its goal to give a woman the freedom to have her own goals, which may sometimes coincide with what we think is good. Sometimes it may be just a woman's goal. And what we say is that we do not tell the woman what she should do. We are here so that a woman can express what she wants to do and build a project with us, finding her direction. Time, therefore, is very important because we cannot put a pressure on a woman to get out of violence in a particular moment, to do it with a particular schedule within a certain time frame. It has to be, we say, a woman's own time frame, which, and also it can be time in the sense that that woman may have come to us after a very short relationship or after years and years of a relationship where a man was violent towards her and if there are any, towards the children. So again, time is really fundamental for us as a way of respecting, and not judging a woman for anything that she has done or not done up to the time, decisions she has made or not made. Resources are very important. They are the woman's resources, which is something that we try to find out with her, and we will show you hopefully today the process through which we try to see what her resources are, how they have been impacted by the violence that the man has been acting on her. And it's also the resources that surround her. So it's her own internal resources, and it's the resources that are around her, which is her network of relationships. And then on a wider scale, it's our own resources, how they can enter in a relationship with her, and the resources that we can activate in our turn. So it becomes, a building of something very complex, and we will today try to see how that works. Finally, constraints are the constraints, of course, that are the lack of the resources in the woman. It can be also the fact that she has children, and she may decide or have decided to stay in that relationship because she realizes that she has fears. It may be the things that she doesn't have has been things that have been taken away from her. It may be all of the situation we evaluate together, so that the project is a project that is really a project of freedom based on what a woman really can do at that moment in her life, based on the fact that at any moment she has been doing the best that she can. So what we want to say is free her from the constraints as much as we can, and improve the quantity and quality of the resources.
Thank you, Ilaria. So let's move to the first phase of our welcoming activity, the telephone interview. How they can call us. For example, they can find us on the website, of course, but we have also a national anti-violence number, which is 1522. And calling this number, the answers can tell to the woman which is the center closer to their house. And we don't have a switchboard, so that means that as soon as we are on the phone, we intend that we are in an interview. So this is the time to let's start to listen and to speak with the woman and to understand what is going on. Everyone who is part of our group must be trained. You can imagine that on the phone could be a woman who's crying, who's desperate. So you must be able to stay calm and to help the woman to make something to become calm again. Sometimes I propose some breathing exercise, and then the woman can regain some control. How we train our volunteer with 1 year of training, first with theory, and then with participating here beside us, side by side, and practicing, and then they start to answer to the phone. Okay, if on the other side there is a woman who is in a very emergency situation, of course, which I suggest her to call the law enforcement, because it's necessary their intervention before ours. But if the woman can speak with us, this is the time to collect information, to gather information, and understand what is her need and what she is thinking to do. It happened a lot of time that a woman call us, and meanwhile they are on the street, just run away from the house. So in this case, we just pay for a taxi because the woman can come here immediately and we can meet her in a very short time. Risk assessment, I think you know it, but of course we have to understand which is the risk in that moment and what is possible to do. This is the first point, the key to start, to understand what to do first and then to proceed in the project. Analysis of her needs, of course, and initial orientation to resources. For example, we have to understand what she wants to do, to separate, to report, or just to speak with someone. A lot of women call us, for example, just to understand if what they are experiencing is violence. And so the telephone interview is very useful in this case, because we can start from little steps to nominate, to clarify if the experience is violent and the man is an abusive man. After the telephone interview,
we
move.
Yeah, during the telephone interview, of course, after there is a risk assessment, we give an appointment because it is important to see each other. That is the moment. Sometimes during the telephone interview, we're able to really gather a lot. A lot of women come to us and they say that a relationship has already established on the telephone, that they felt that someone was really accepting them and their story, and they already tell us a lot. But of course, it's on that telephone interview that we have to establish how quickly we need to see the woman. And if it's not an emergency situation that needs to be addressed immediately, sometimes the woman has to come in immediately, then, you know, we establish the urgency, and compatibly with our possibilities, we try to make room according to this principle. And so our practice has always been to, you know, organize a vis-a-vis interview. Of course, this was the case before the pandemic. During the pandemic, we had to overcome the problems that were created, impossibility of meeting through using all the possibilities. We used telephones, video calls on cell phones. We used all sorts of platforms, providing, of course, the women were free enough to use them, or we just continued with phone interviews. But the basis of our methodology is the vis-a-vis interview in person. And in that interview, it's two of our operators, what we called the frontline operators, with the woman in a nice, quiet setting inside our center, so that you know, the necessary listening and support is provided. The interview starts with you know, we ask the woman to basically decide where she wants to start from. We have all sorts of different situations. Sometimes a woman is asking again the question, is this violence? You know, sometimes we also have the case of women who do not show up, and maybe they will call us again and show up in the future. We have really everything, because again, the freedom of coming here is the basic principle. So when a woman comes, the first thing we tell her is that what she's going to tell us is going to remain secret and anonymous. And this is very important. We have to fight for this principle, because a woman needs to know that she is in a safe place. We don't even mention among operators the name of the woman. We use an initial sometimes, because the story of what happened to her is not her destiny. It's not forever her reality. It is something that has been done to her, and she comes here to free herself from that, or to meet other women so that she can start finding a mirror and feel that she can face the pain of recognizing what has happened to her. So it starts with her telling us the story. Sometimes we have to ask questions in order to gather that story. Sometimes she knows where she wants to start and she starts telling us her story. Then of course we have to ask questions, because the specificity of our experience, we put ourselves in a horizontal position with her, but of course we're not taking care of her in the sense, you know, we really are again on the same level, but we bring our experience. So we are women, and we say that immediately, not professionals in the sense that she's going to bring us something and we're going to tell her what to do. We ask questions, and you know, the truth of the violence emerges through those questions, and we go very slowly and carefully, because we know that it is very, very painful and difficult. It cannot come all at a time. It depends on where the woman is, at what stage she is. And one thing that we find is that usually people say women come to a center and they become aware. Actually, the awareness in our experience is there, but it is silenced in order to survive. And so this is a place where a woman comes and she is able to say to herself things in front of us. This is where it is also very important that there's two operators there, because it becomes a circularity, it's a circle of women. And this is also serves a practical purpose of making sure that if one of the operators is not available the next time, there can be a continuity, because we try to make sure that one of us is always there. In case that's not possible, we make sure that we leave to each other a little trace, always with the woman's permission, that we keep those information and that they stay only inside our center, because when she comes to our centers, we do not say anything to anyone. We're not an institution in that sense. So what she tells us, again, is she's going to have total control of the things that she brings to our center. So after listening to her story and asking the questions, so that the story becomes something that makes sense, that the pattern of violence emerges, we examine the cycle of violence with her. And after this has been done, based on what I was saying before, her goals, we ask her the question about what she wants to do, and we look at her needs and her possible strategies that we assess together with her. It's never, oh, you should do this or that. It's always, so let's see together what are, the ways, the paths that you might take, the strategies. Sometimes the strategies are of survival in the immediate future, such as if there is no possibility of getting out of violence immediately, what are going to be some things that she can put in place so that she can, gather sometimes more information that she's going to need if she's going to go through the legal options and legal path, which is not always, but in many cases, the case. Something that happens. We look at her immediate needs. We try to find out if she needs money. Sometimes, there are basic needs that she needs to face. And of course, the needs are also what she needs to build the strategy, which is what we were saying before, meeting lawyers, if it's okay to go on with meeting frontline operators and build a strategy, or she is going to need more deep work with psychologists, for example. We start looking at the work situation, but again, we proceed slowly in this, because what is important is to see what are the priorities for the woman. So if the priority is safety, and there's also a need for a job in order to make her project of getting out of violence something that can, continue and exist. First of all, we need to face the safety issues, and then we can move on to thinking of work. So we have to together to understand very carefully, not to put too much pressure and too many things on a woman. So we really want to pay a lot of attention to what she really needs and her story. Then, of course, we provide her with information on all the things that we can do, again, being very careful that this is not too much for her, because the first step is to understand at what level, because when a woman comes, sometimes there are women who come and already have a project in their mind. We can, see if it's something that can be done or not together. Other times, we really have to go through a situation where the pain is such that we need to organize the story with the woman. So what we're doing later is we're bringing one example, but perhaps through your questions, we can go a little bit more into detail of what comes to us, because it's really a whole variety of situations. So again, at the end of this, the first interview, which can last sometimes we try to put a limit again, because both the woman and the operators can become very tired, but we sometimes have had interviews that lasted into the 2 hours or even more. We tend to keep it to an hour and a half. Well, it's not like a woman going to a professional and there's your 50 minutes, we look into what she needs. We have our own organization, of course, but into that organization, we put the fact that she is at the center. So we're going to make her feel that we are here, because the first one especially is a meeting in which she's putting a lot of effort. There was a huge effort in calling us, but the effort in coming here, and we see it sometimes. She comes here and she's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have come. Oh, I don't know what to expect. Oh, I'm going to say all these things to women I've never met before. And it's a great, wonderful pleasure sometimes for us too, to see her leave and say, oh, it was great to come here, because as much as I'm in pain, now I see clearly, more clearly. I feel that I have done something for myself and I have hope. What we do in the first interview, aside from proposing again that she can meet usually the lawyers is the first step. Sometimes it's our work area operators, is we immediately ask her if she feels like setting up another interview. For example, after she has seen the lawyers, the second interview is going to be very important, so that the project of getting out of violence can become like a more focused project, something more concrete with steps that can be established. Sometimes it's just continuing to listen to her because she needs to clarify the situation and find strength to continue to understand what is going on. Again, there is a huge variety. And with the years, we have changed and improved enormously the kind of attention and the number of follow-up interviews. What we say is, once we establish relationship, that relationship doesn't end. You may decide not to come back, or you may decide that you need to see us many times, and your needs may change with time, and we are here to continuously adjust the project with you. Very often the woman says, yes, I'd like to right now sign up for and decide for a date, or sometimes she prefers to call us and do it. And she is at the center. She has to be in control. This is the only way out of a situation in which she has been under terrible control, which was limiting her freedom. And so it's in the follow-up interviews, not necessarily in the second one, that we start defining the steps and the operational proposals for, a path out of violence.
And I would like to add that we also receive calls, and we organize meetings with colleagues and parents or friends who are close to women living in an abusive relationship. In this case, of course, the interview is not only on what is going on, but how they can be useful for it, how they can stay close to that woman, what they can do to help the woman.
Okay, so to summarize what we've been saying, so the relationship among women is the center and the basis of how we work. It is this possibility for the woman to acknowledge violence and unveil the secret in silence. It's very delicate. And this is why we stress so much the importance of the fact that this is a place of women for women. We all come from a shared experience of norms and impositions and control. We all live on a continuum of the experience of the material reality of growing up, as women. And what happens with violence is an extreme of our life within patriarchy, but this is why we can all understand this. And of course, when I say it's delicate, and this is where we need a lot of training, is it's not really a chat among women exchanging experiences. The operator comes from that experience, but the operator knows how to be extremely empathetic, but also not getting personal in turn, but still being personal enough that the other woman feels that it is a real relationship and it is not someone who is in a position of power and control once again. So it is a complex thing that we try to achieve, and it makes a big difference. And how we know that it works is that women tell us that they feel that this is really a place where they feel that they are in a relationship. So it's a strong word. It's not just talking to each other. Legitimizing the woman's experience, grief, anger, confusion. Active, it's engaged, I would say, because this comes from active listening is what happens in counseling, but legitimize means anything she brings here, we say everything she is good. We sometimes send them home with a sentence, tell yourself that everything you are is a good thing, your feelings, and so we legitimize them here. And we try to, together with the woman, to make sense of what, she's bringing, what she's feeling, the things that she has done and the things that she hasn't done, because of course she has done the best that she could. So even if she gets anger, brings anger to us or grief, we leave her the time, and we try to explain why it makes sense that she's feeling that way. Fostering the acquisition of useful tools and methods of self-protection. Of course, then we try to transfer to her our experience, so that in a way that she doesn't feel like we're telling her what to do. She already knows. So what we do is we try to strengthen her ability to use those tools, or we help her acquire new tools so that she can protect herself, both when she is inside the relationship, if she has to stay for some time, or even if she decides to not get out of it. We respect that. And we valorize women for their skills and desire. And definitely a very fundamental thing that happens here is self-esteem. It goes through the whole process of those meetings. And her sense that what she has done is, and what she can do is something that will be her resistance, survival, and her possibility of exiting violence the way she decides. And we appreciate women's identity as a value. Of course, part of violence is telling a woman that she's worthless. This is being told her in a variety of ways. You probably all know them, and it is something that is acted upon her to the point that she is not. She's going to feel that being a woman is a negative thing, and what we want to emerge here is the positivity of being a free woman.
I was thinking that when you say useful tools, sometimes it's something very simple, like how to have a safe mobile phone, or how to be aware if he's able to read their emails, for example. So we must also learn something very technical to help those women. And to learn first for us how to stop this kind of breaking programs.
Oh yeah, and getting like a new phone number, getting a new email address.
Yeah. Google is not helping in this case.
Or using apps, for example, that we developed together with Vodafone, for example. There's this app that can be hidden and under a cover. It looks like a weather report, and instead the woman can use it to find information, to keep a diary,
To
you know,
collect video
to
and
collect the video,
pictures.
to also read it and recognize in the stories of other women other aspects of her story that she can bring to us later. We tell her, of course, how to lock herself in a room. We do give, I mean, it's not advice, but we again, you know, we think of situations in which she may find herself depending on the story that she brings, and we try to get to her, okay, if you are in this situation, how can you get out of it? This is something you can do. This is how you can reach out if, you know, something else is not possible. So yeah, we go through all these things.
Now, so at this point, I think we said everything regards our methodology, but just we put in a list here much more clearly, and starting from confidentiality and anonymity. Our experience told us that it is paramount to protect women's histories and their sensitive data in order to keep them safe. And this point is so a key of our methodology that since long time, for many years, we never receive what was meant to CADMI from region fund. And you can imagine this was a big problem for us, but we try to face it with a colleague who make crowdfunding for us. So we never reveal, we never share what we call codice fiscale, fiscal code of the woman.
Maybe social security number.
Social security number or tax ID code, because so anyone can really understand and recognize which is the woman who come here in the center. So is the first thing that we say to the woman when they call us or during the interview here. And this is always a real practice, because we never do anything without the woman or in taking her place. After that, no judgment, as Ilaria already said. We never say why you stay with him then, or why you marry him, or why you have a baby with him. And that's why we know exactly how it works, the violence system. That is, the aim is to save the status quo itself. So to maintain, to save the control. Active listening, open, horizontal, and deep listening. This is the only way to stay with the woman. And this is the reason why, if a woman stop to come to the center, because it's not the right time for her to decide what to do or to change the status quo, a lot of time, they call us back next year or after years, and they start again to speak with us because they understand that here they were never judged. This is a very big problem outside, and we will see how in network with social services or in courts or with law enforcement agencies is always used, judging ladies.
Yeah, I'd like to add something about the no judgment, sorry, Lorena, which is, as we speak, things come to mind to me. So again, it may come to mind to you to ask us questions too, and this will help us be clearer. But women come to us usually telling us that they judge themselves stupid for staying or weak. Yeah. And so the no judgment is very important, because we need to transfer to a woman the freedom from the judgment that she feels for what she has been exposed to, the things that have been done to her, because she thinks she has allowed those things to happen to her. And this is a big part of what we do. We unravel with her the fact that there are a lot of reasons why the trap of violence been created around her and implemented and acted upon her with the complicity of very often an entire society. So again, we will not talk about this today because you probably know it very well, but we have we're conducting a long struggle against institutional violence. And it's not just institutional, it's society. It's sometimes we say the family can be a resource, but sometimes the family is not a resource. To the contrary, friends who may ask her, why are you staying? Colleagues. So we do a lot of training so that this no judgment thing becomes like the big mantra of getting out of violence.
And also children is a reason to stay or a reason to leave and to change the situation. So we have to put this kind of attention in every interview. Yeah, with women. Freedom of choice. This is a very key point of our methodology. Of course, we can make hypotheses or we can give them suggestions, but at the end, the final decision is up to her. We can't really change these. The experience show us that if the woman is not ready to do something, the project will fail. So we have to respect her choice. So the decision whether to report the abusing man also depends on her. We are fully aware of the delicacy of this decision, and we know that she has to take into consideration a lot of different elements. So no obligation to report or press charges. We have a lot of messages on TV and communication and advertise who said that the women has to report, but we know that this is a very delicate time and decision, of course, because it's a very dangerous step to do. And so before to report, this center with the woman, we has to take in consideration a lot of things. First of all, if she is safe. For that reason, we always take in consideration risk assessment, SARA, spousal harass risk assessment. Maybe you know it. And is a professional structured method who allow us to predict whether in short term the risk is high or low. Of course, if the risk is high, that means death risk, mortal risk, and we can suggest to the woman to go out, to change the house or to go in a shelter house. But as we say that she has to take the final decision, we can't really oblige the woman to do that. And also because we know how big sacrifice is to leave her home or to quit with the job or change schools for children. So as you can see, every history, every experience must be taken in a very individual and unique consideration. I ask you if you know this method, if you use it or not. Is something that we can fulfill, we can complete with the woman, or make just in a mental way, and then we can just do when our interview is finished. And we have 15 items. 5 are dedicated to vulnerability of the woman, and 10 are necessary to understand, to investigate which kind of risk is. For example, he has a gun, or he menaces to harass the woman, or something like that. Have you ever seen this form?
Okay, there is something in the chat. Maybe we can.
Ti
Okay.
dicono, yes, from, someone say no, and someone say that also the municipality of Barcelona adopted this method.
Okay, thank you, Elena.
Thank
So
you.
for those who say no, I think we very quickly, it's the kind of, I mean, it emerges from the kind of question. Sometimes we don't do it as just item 1, item 2, but for example, the first one is if there have been physical or sexual violences in the relationship now and in the past. So of course, if we're listening to a woman's story, we don't need to ask the question directly as if we were interrogating her. This is where, from, our meeting with her, what happens, we mentally, or even we take a few notes, we know this and we know which questions to ask, but in a way, if they don't emerge from the story, then we may say, oh, and this man, has he, is he someone who uses guns? Does he go hunting? And it's interesting because very recently to me, for example, for a woman who had already presented her pressed charges with a lawyer and everything, not a lawyer from our center. And she came here, and sometimes they come here that they have already started, some parts, but they still need us in order to, clarify what they're doing and be supported. So again, it's a variety of things. I asked this question because it seemed to me something that has not emerged, and it turns out, yes, he was someone who could manage and use guns and, had a permit to use them. So, and this, of course, it was already a high risk assessment, but it became higher. These are things, also the kind of, for example, we ask if a man uses drugs or alcohol, and we always tell the woman, this doesn't mean that he is violent because he uses those. That is only something that aggravates and makes the situation riskier, because if he's threatening to, all these men threaten sometimes, if you don't do what I say, I will lose control. And this is a very interesting threat, because it means that they control when they lose control. So this is how we can make it very, very clear that domestic violence is a situation of really control and controlled loss of control. This is how we contest the, descriptions in the media very often, that he lost it and it was raptus, I don't know if in English that is also used, it comes from Latin, but something is taking him away from himself. But it's actually a very, what emerges from the stories that we gather, and then unfortunately from, the investigations when things go wrong, is that there was a careful planning of killing a woman. So it is never something that happens out of a lack, of rational control.
And what is also interesting is that Sarah investigate which kind of idea of feminine has the woman. For example, if he thinks that a woman can be a success woman, professionist or not, if he thinks that which kind of relationship has with the mothers or with sisters, and I think is a very important point, because the awareness of our women starts also from them, from this point, to understand how the men can look at this part of the word, the feminist part, the feminine part. And I want to say that also in Italy, social services and also law enforcement agencies, they use a sort of model like this one, but a short version. They have only five questions instead of 15 like ours.
But to go again, since someone said that they don't know it, for example, so that I said the first one is if there has been physical or sexual violence, if there has been threats of violence or intention to act violence, if there has been an escalation, these are all things that emerge from our, we don't need to ask them directly. they come out of the story. So what the characteristic of our work as operators is that this is deeply inside us. We don't need to look at it, and then we can reconstruct it after the woman has left. If he has violated orders from the judge, for example, if something has already happened and she has already pressed charges, this happens. And sometimes, again, I said women can come here at all stages of their situation and their path out of violence. What Lorena was saying, his mentality, the kind of ideas that emerge, if he has been, to court before and put in, has had prison sentences or antisocial behaviors, if he behaves in an aggressive way also outside the relationship. And it's interesting, we have two kinds here: the ones that are violent everywhere, which are dangerous for that, but also the ones who are very careful in showing something different outside. So women come and say, oh, he's bipolar. It's a kind of an interesting bipolar because, he is one way a moment, but if somebody else appears, then he's another way. So we say that he is a manipulative person who is very, very aware of when it is a good thing for him to use violence to control and scare her, but then doesn't want the other people to believe her. If he has problems with work, a job, sometimes, they're also, they change jobs a lot, and they attribute always the responsibility to the others. It's the colleagues, it's my bosses, people don't understand me, the whole world, it's never their fault. If they have financial problems, again, I already mentioned, if they use substances, alcohol, if they have mental problems that have been recognized by professionals. And once again, we separate the violence, because not all people with mental problems are violent and controlling of their partner. And then we look at the vulnerabilities of the woman. In the form, it's called the victim. We don't like to call the woman the victim. She is a woman who is in a situation in which someone is harming her and taking away her strength. So we look at this is a bit judgmental in the form, I believe. Her attitude, incoherent attitude towards the violent man. On this particular, this is where we are different. We see the reasons why, because if there is gaslighting and you cannot get out of a situation, of course, in every case of domestic violence, a woman has different conflicting attitudes towards the man. We always say he's not all wrong. Of course, he has also good sides. He's human, but he's doing wrong things to you.
In fact, we don't say incoherent, we say ambivalent.
Yeah, exactly. The language we use among ourselves and with the woman is very important. We tend to be very careful of the language we use. This is part of our training and our continuing training, in that we, in our meetings, in our center, what we do is constantly reaffirm and try to see what we learn from women, because all we know, we learn from women experience. This is how we started, this is how we continue. Again, so we...
Daria,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. There is a question
Yeah.
about, can anyone have access to Sarah?
The woman can change.
Can anyone have access
have-
to Sarah?
What do you mean?
I mean, you see the form?
Yeah.
I think it's, I believe it's public. You can be found. We can...
Yeah, you can find it on internet. Yes, we have it. Sorry, we decide don't put the form in our presentation.
we can.
But what we can do is that we can send it, but it's in Italian.
Yeah, what we can do now is
can
going to
find it
after this.
in English.
Yeah, we're going to have a pause, and in that time, if we find a link, maybe we can figure out a way to put it in the chat for you.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can do it right now. We'll do it during the pause, the break.
And then I want to say, yes, the woman can change her mind. I think here you mean for what regards relationship or for what regard the risk? Christina,
Yeah, we see the woman can change her mind. We'd like to, if you can explain to us a little bit more what you mean.
I want to add that interesting is that Sarah, we do it the first time we meet the woman, and we repeat the Sarah after a few months, because of course the situation and also the risk level can be changed.
Yeah, there can be an escalation.
Yeah,
We
an escalation. So we need to have something very
and the woman may find out after speaking with us that she starts seeing things more deeply and more revealing.
A lot of time it happened that during the interview, the woman had a lot of insight. They said, oh, that's why. Oh, now I can put all those things together.
Yeah, but some of the vulnerabilities that we uncover are not judgmental. For example, if he has taken away the car, she doesn't drive, if he sometimes controls her telephone, if they work together, which creates really it becomes very, very difficult at that point to get out. He has a lot of control over her life. And of course, part of the risk assessment is if they have children, because having children poses, a lot of other obstacles to getting.
And one
out.
of the behavior and the manners that we're taking consideration is also if he manners, for example, to do suicide himself. So it's very interesting to come si dice?
Okay, I think
Compilare.
Let's see if it's this one. Do you want to, maybe we can open it.
No,
I believe, we don't open it now because we don't want
No.
to create a problem, but we'll check it. So if there are no, if you prefer to leave the questions for afterwards, after the we can have a 15-minute break, and then we have a video of one of our vis-a-vis interviews that you can see, and we will invite you to look at it and listen to it carefully. And from that, then we can have, perhaps we can take all the questions after the break based on also, after having explained a lot of things to you, now you're going to see it. We tried to reenact in a video a situation. Of course, it's not a real woman, but it's one of our operators bringing and impersonating one, because we never show the stories. We never tell anyone the stories, single stories of women who come to us. So let's do this. We'll take a 15-minute break. We'll check that that's Sarah, what he sent us, and then we'll take all the questions in the second part of this morning training, if that's okay, or unless there is an urgent question right now. I see.
Say okay.
Okay, great.
So let's do our break. So we will meet again at 12 o'clock.
Yes, perfect. So as we said, we're going to see a model interview now. And so we ask you to think of all the things that we have said so far, describing what we do, and hopefully this will give you a clearer idea. And then we will listen to your comments afterwards.
Buongiorno signora, benvenuta.
Grazie. Un po' agitata.
Immagino, perché la nostra collega con cui ha fatto il colloquio telefonico ci ha accennato un po' la sua storia. Noi siamo qui per supportarla. La nostra metodologia prevede totale anonimato, segretezza, riservatezza. Noi crediamo che la relazione fra donne rafforzi e dia supporto per realizzare un progetto di uscita da una situazione di violenza, e quindi siamo qui per ascoltare quello che ci vuole raccontare.
Grazie. Questa cosa mi fa sentire un po' più sicura, che non diciate nulla a nessuno, anche perché la mia storia non l'ho condivisa molto, quindi...
Ok,
E ci presentiamo, io sono Cristina.
io sono Lucia.
Io sono Federica, piacere. Piacere Federica. Allora,
si sente di raccontarci cosa sta succedendo in questo momento, che l'ha condotta anche qua?
Ma quello che mi ha portata qua è un'amica in realtà. È un'amica che da tanto tempo mi dice che dovrei farmi una chiacchierata con qualcuno che si occupa di violenza. Io non lo so se quello che sto vivendo è una situazione di violenza, o meglio, io lo so che lo è che sono tanti anni e in questi anni forse la situazione è andata sempre peggio e io mi sento invischiata, come se non riuscissi a uscire da questa cosa con mio marito, che peraltro è anche il padre dei miei 2 figli, una figlia e un figlio.
Che età hanno questi bambini?
Sono quasi 2 ragazzini, hanno 10 anni e 12 anni, poi adesso insomma sono molto attivi, molto smart, ecco, non sono più bambini purtroppo.
Siamo in preadolescenza, un periodo bellissimo e difficile, complicato.
Sì.
Ok. E quindi vuole farci degli esempi che cosa succede, no, in questo momento? Perché lei dice non so se quello che sta succedendo è violenza. Per esempio, mi viene in mente qualche episodio che le lascia questo dubbio?
Non lo so, non riesco a mettere a fuoco bene degli episodi specifici, perché da che io ho memoria, mio marito è sempre stato così, a fasi alterne, è sempre stato uno, fin da quando ci siamo conosciuti, che si arrabbiava per un non nulla, che mi urlava contro, che mi diceva che non ero in grado di scegliere una pietanza al ristorante, piuttosto che non ero in grado di parlare bene o confrontarmi con altre persone se eravamo a tavola con degli amici, che dicevo un sacco di sciocchezze.
Questo lo diceva anche di fronte agli altri o lo diceva lei da sola?
No, mio marito è uno che ci tiene al farsi vedere come si deve, quindi sì.
Ok.
Quando tornavamo a casa lui mi vomitava addosso tutto quanto.
Alzava la voce?
A voglia, si alzava la voce, ogni tanto i vicini, prima abitavamo in una casetta piccola, adesso abitiamo in una casa più grande a 2 livelli, i vicini picchiavano, ma sa quante volte hanno picchiato, anche perché magari era tarda notte e giustamente quelli volevano dormire. Però poi tornava bravo, come posso dirlo.
Affettuoso,
sì,
premuroso.
Faceva poi dei gesti molto eclatanti, anche molto, non lo so, da persona molto innamorata, un po' quello che si vede, no? Nei film, veniva a prendermi al lavoro con mazzi di rose, oppure andavamo a farci un weekend. Ecco, quindi io poi mi dimenticavo di quello che succedeva.
Quindi prometteva anche di cambiare questa sua modalità violenta?
No.
Le chiedeva scusa?
No, questo non me l'ha mai chiesto. Ma me ne sono accorta adesso. Me ne sono accorta adesso perché me l'ha fatto notare mia figlia mentre assisteva a una discussione tra di noi e anche poi al seguito. Lei mi ha detto: mamma, ma hai visto che papà alla fine, anche quando ti dice delle brutte cose, lui non ti chiede mai scusa, ti dice sempre che poi è sempre colpa tua, che se tu non gli avessi risposto male lui allora non avrebbe esatto, sì, in quell'occasione non avrebbe tirato un pugno alla porta, ecco, se proprio dobbiamo dire.
Rompe anche degli oggetti in quei momenti?
Sì, e le assicuro meglio gli oggetti che la mia testa, questo sì.
Mi è capitato che lui, non so, tirasse un pugno al muro mentre lei era vicino al muro o cose del genere?
Quello no. Ma che mi guardasse mentre lo faceva, quello sì. E io ho avuto proprio la sensazione che se lui, non lo so, non avesse una sorta di autocontrollo o paura che legalmente possa succedere qualcosa, allora mi avrebbe anche spaccato la testa, quello sì. Spaccato, insomma, fatto qualcosa.
La sensazione che avrebbe scaricato la sua violenza non sugli oggetti ma anche su di lei.
Sì.
E dopo questi episodi che cosa succedeva? Cioè lei mi diceva che, non so, così non andava bene, che si aspettava delle altre modalità da lui. Gli ha mai parlato anche, non so, di separazione, se lei mai ci ha pensato? No, niente di
Non si può parlare di separazione con lui ed è anche forse uno dei motivi per cui io sono qua, perché io non ce la faccio più, cioè lui ha sempre fatto così e è peggiorato, da quando abbiamo i bambini è veramente peggiorato. È peggiorato non solo nelle risposte che mi dà verbali o anche nelle cose che mi chiede o nel controllo, nelle pretese che lui ha su di me.
Che cosa fa per controllarla?
Ma, per esempio abbiamo un conto in comune in cui mensilmente dobbiamo versare dei soldi e io non so per esempio lui quanto guadagna, però lui sa esattamente quanto guadagno io e vuole che tutte le spese che io faccio vengano rendicontate, non so come posso dirvi, devo dare lo scontrino, devo prima passare da lui se devo iscrivere il bimbo a calcio, se la bimba deve andare a danza e tenete conto che lui non fa niente per loro, non è che li va a prendere a scuola o li porta, sono sempre io che mi devo sbattere tra babysitter, che peraltro pago io, permessi al lavoro, favore alle mamme.
Che lavoro fa Federica?
Io lavoro in banca e mi piace molto, ho deciso di continuare a lavorare, lavoro da tanti anni, però è un po' anche come ripagare i miei genitori del sacrificio che hanno fatto. Loro non abitano qua, abitano in Sud Italia, sono qua da sola e mio marito, che guadagna molto bene, ma non so quanto, mi ha detto che avrei potuto smettere di lavorare. In realtà io non ho voluto, ben sapendo che mi sarei andata contro e lui questo non smette di farmelo notare, ecco. Però meno male che ho il lavoro, perché è quello che mi sta dando la forza per andare avanti.
Oltre a questo tipo di controllo, che noi definiamo anche una violenza economica, perché contribuire alle spese di casa dovrebbe essere una ripartizione equa, no? della situazione, invece sembra che ci sia una disparità.
Di sicuro. Anzi un'inversione, perché è qua proporzionalmente a quelle che sono le risorse. Se lui guadagna tanto di più, in teoria dovrebbe contribuire di più, e invece sembra esattamente il contrario da quello che ci racconta Federica.
E anche queste denigrazioni verbali, che la sottostimano, non la svalutano, no, non vale niente, non sei capace, non fai le scelte giuste, oltre a queste urla che avvengono. Questo controllo viene agito anche in altre situazioni, non so, le chiede dove va, chi frequenta.
Beh, io non posso frequentare nessuno, cioè nel senso che non è che io posso uscire dal lavoro, prendermi 2 ore e andare a prendere un caffè con un'amica. Io le mie amiche, le persone che voglio, le incontro prendendomi ore di permesso dall'orario di lavoro, in modo tale che lui non me la meni, perché lui viene a prendermi quasi tutti i giorni sotto il lavoro. Quindi con la scusa che i mezzi non sono sicuri, che poi non è vero, perché tanto io li prendo lo stesso i mezzi. Quando sono da sola con i bambini io vado con i mezzi, non ho la macchina perché c'era lui, però lui viene a prendermi sempre e se io faccio 1 minuto di ritardo
le fa il terzo grado? E dice come mai, con chi hai parlato, ti sei fermata, eccetera?
Sì, oppure fa delle insinuazioni, come fa sempre, che io ho delle altre persone, ho degli amanti, che il mio posto di lavoro io me lo sono guadagnata perché il direttore della banca è il mio amante, insomma, tutte queste robe che ormai entrano qua e escono di là, perché me le dice da non so quanti anni.
E quindi pretende anche che lei si occupi della casa, della spesa, che dia gli scontrini. Ok. È capitato anche che gli controlli il cellulare?
Questo non lo so.
Lei ha un PIN del telefono?
Sì.
Ok, lui conosce il PIN?
Sì.
E se lei cambiasse il PIN, cosa
No,
succederebbe?
la prego. Non lo so cosa succede, ma a me solo l'idea di cambiare una cosa che va bene com'è mi mette in uno stato di agitazione. Perché lui potrebbe arrabbiarsi non potendo più accedere al suo cellulare? Sì, o io ho fatto una cosa senza chiedergli il permesso in realtà. Cioè che poi il telefono è mio, non è che... Però, adesso che mi dice così, però è vero, lui sa il mio PIN e di sicuro potrebbe entrare nel telefono. Io non l'ho mai visto che accede ai miei messaggi.
Ok.
La sua famiglia cosa dice? A conoscenza di questa situazione, di questa sua preoccupazione, ansia, tristezza anche immagino, no, questa mancanza di libertà? Loro non devono sapere niente. Loro non devono sapere niente perché mio papà ne soffrirebbe davvero troppo e anche mia madre, figuriamoci. Quindi no, loro non sanno niente. Ho accennato qualche cosa così a mia sorella che in realtà l'aveva inquadrato subito lui, però mia sorella sta all'estero, quindi non è che cosa può fare? Ascoltarmi. Lei in realtà mi dice di separarmi ormai da almeno 6 anni, però
Quest'uomo fa uso di sostanze, beve, fa qualche cosa di così?
ma non che io sappia. È vero che lui ha un'alta funzione, insomma è un alto dirigente, per cui non lo so se è per gestire lo stress
Però
fa uso
lei
di
non ha
qualcosa,
notato
però io
questo
veramente non mi
tipo
sono
di
mai accorta. Ma lui viene a prenderla al lavoro e dopo resta a casa, anche se non partecipa alla gestione, alle cure domestiche, lui resta a casa o lui invece è libero di uscire, esce la sera
No.
per conto suo?
Lui si fa le cose sue senza problemi, lui mi viene a prendere al lavoro, mi porta dei bambini e se ne va,
E se ne va.
neanche mi porta a casa o mi porta a calcio per dire. E quindi poi che cosa lui faccia nella sua vita io non ne ho idea. Non ne ho idea. Ho un sacco di volte provato a chiedergli, ma lui si arrabbia moltissimo, dice che invado la sua privacy e quindi non mi ha chiesto, non gli chiedo più niente, basta.
E con i bambini come si comporta?
Io vorrei che si comportasse diversamente, perché le stesse cose che lui fa con me le fa con i bambini, a un altro livello. Per esempio lui quando arriva a casa batte i pugni contro la porta e poi apre le porte a calcioni e i bambini scappano al secondo piano, noi abbiamo una casa su 2 livelli, per non sentirlo e per paura che lui possa arrabbiarsi con loro. Ed è sempre stato così, non li saluta neanche, fatto salvo poi quando ci sono momenti diciamo in cui è molto tranquillo, che allora diventa il padre modello, li porta a cena fuori o ci porta tutti e 4 o va a vedere le partite, però o non li considera o li tratta male, si arrabbia con loro, urla a me davanti a loro, quindi qualche volta sì è capitato che alzasse le mani.
Sui bambini?
Sì. Sì, ma non una sculacciata che si fa perché ti scappa. Sono successe anche altre cose.
E su di lei, Federica, è mai successo che deve alzarsi le mani?
Sì, una volta, poi non l'ho più fatto perché ho minacciato di denunciarlo e questo mi rovinerebbe la carriera. L'ha fatto una volta quando ero incinta del secondo figlio.
E però può essere capitato che lui gli si avvicini molto vicino al volto urlando e che le abbia dato qualche spintone, ma è successo?
Sì, qualche volta sì, dalla spalla qua, poi mi fa cascare sul divano. Però io sto zitta, non dico niente, uno perché non voglio che i bambini sentano e poi perché non voglio che si agiti ancora di più. Ecco, cioè lui deve fare qualcosa per questa rabbia, non c'è modo. io non posso gestire queste urla continue e questo a volte si arrabbia così tanto che cambia proprio la faccia, che diventa tutto rosso, poi sembra quasi viola, questi occhi che escono fuori dalle orbite e poi è come se fosse una magia, no? E boom, e di colpo cambia, che se uno entra un attimo prima vede un demonio e l'attimo dopo
Non può sospettare.
no.
Quella che lei, Federica, chiama rabbia, noi la chiamiamo violenza, perché da tutte le altre cose che ha descritto, la denigrazione, il controllo, la mancanza di libertà a fronte di un carico totalizzante delle cure domestiche, del lavoro familiare, della gestione dei bambini, a fronte di tutto questo lui non fa che denigrare, controllare, limitare, aggredire verbalmente e anche fisicamente, e controllare anche economicamente le risorse che lei potrebbe gestire anche in autonomia, almeno in parte dopo aver contribuito al bilancio familiare. Quindi noi questo non la chiamiamo rabbia, la chiamiamo violenza, compreso anche il periodo in cui lui è calmo, tranquillo, affettuoso, premuroso, perché la violenza è un ciclo che mantiene, lei ci ha detto sono tanti anni che è sposata con quell'uomo, da subito lui ha manifestato queste smanie di controllo, di denigrazione, però lei giustamente è rimasta in questo matrimonio perché poi c'erano i momenti in cui si dimenticava tutto, no? Pensando di tornare ad una vita serena, normale, equilibrata. Quindi noi la chiamiamo violenza questa, non rabbia. E le vogliamo chiedere, davanti a questa, lei in parte la consapevolezza ce l'ha perché si sente il suo carico, la sua fatica, anche la sua quasi rassegnazione, e invece le chiediamo, visto che ha fatto questo gesto così importante per sé di venire qui, cosa vorrebbe fare, cosa desidererebbe fare se avesse la libertà e la forza di farlo, anche per i suoi bambini. Lei ha rilevato questo timore dei bambini, questa paura dei bambini e in parte anche questa replica degli atteggiamenti invece del padre, no? Perché i bambini usano i modelli familiari nel loro processo di crescita. Che cosa desidera fare Federica?
Io vorrei trovare la forza per andarmene, o meglio, mi piacerebbe che lui se ne andasse e fare la mia vita con i miei bambini.
Il fatto che lui se ne vada, lei ha mai parlato con lui di questa cosa? Di una conclusione della relazione, di un desiderio di separarsi?
No, con lui non si può parlare di questo.
Non lo accetterebbe?
Non lo accetterebbe.
Ok.
No. Va fatto e basta. Ma non so come.
Lui le ha mai appunto promesso di, non so, andare da uno psicologo per vedere queste sue cose
Magari.
rabbaiose?
No.
Non ha mai fatto questo tipo di promesse?
No, non l'ha mai fatte e le dirò di più. Se le avesse fatte non le avrebbe sicuramente mantenute, come la maggior parte delle cose che ha detto che non ha mai fatto. Però io vorrei davvero provare ad allontanarmi da lui con i bambini. Io senza di loro non vado da nessuna parte. Però so che bisogna fare comunque dei passi, come posso dire, legali, perché le cose siano in ordine, cioè io non voglio scappare, poi lui rimane sempre il padre dei bambini, quindi non ho alcuna intenzione di non farglieli vedere, figuriamoci.
Ok, qui lei può, se vuole, in maniera totalmente gratuita e senza nessun impegno, incontrare delle legali che si occupano una della parte civile e una della parte invece penale. Questo non comporta necessariamente fare niente, né in una direzione né nell'altra, ma può ricevere una serie di informazioni su cosa comporta se lei medita di separarsi, oppure anche se parere della legale penalista può essere lei può denunciare quello che sta differendoci. Questo poi sarà una valutazione che lei farà e se vuole la fa accompagnata da noi, nel senso che dopo questo ipotetico incontro con le legali possiamo rivederci, possiamo sentire quello che lei vuole dirci rispetto a come si è trovata, eccetera, eccetera, i pensieri che ha fatto e vedere insieme se ci sono dei passi che si sente di cominciare a mettere come un'idea.
Soprattutto valutare anche come fare questi passi garantendo tutela a se stessa e ai propri bambini.
Esatto.
Perché quello che ci dice è che lui assolutamente con lui non si può neanche parlare di certi argomenti, che lui non ha consapevolezza, non chiede scusa, quindi non ha un approccio di rimprovero verso se stesso, verso le cose che fa e di consapevolezza. Ci preoccupa molto come potrebbe reagire un uomo così quando arriva la lettera di una legale comunicandogli la volontà della moglie di separare la propria strada perché ci sono dei motivi per cui è venuto meno, no? L'affetto, la condivisione. Quindi la nostra riflessione insieme dopo riguarda anche questo, la sicurezza sua e dei suoi bambini, rispetto ad una decisione di separarsi quando avrà assunto tutte le informazioni.
Valutazione che lei ha già fatto, Federica, perché il fatto che lei non faccia delle cose sa la sua reazione, no? La immagina, l'ha verificata e la teme giustamente e quindi sta appunto anche il fatto di essere venuta qui, no? Di studiare anche che cosa può andare bene per lei, valutando insieme la recidiva di un rischio, quindi quest'uomo è potenzialmente pericoloso, perché ci sembra dal suo racconto che ci sia una negazione, no, di questi atti violenti, che poi lui cambia così e per lui va tutto bene, no? Quindi non ascoltando anche il suo disagio, il disagio dei bambini, lo seguendo così, lui non sbaglia. E questo è un elemento che dobbiamo tenere in considerazione, ok?
Va bene, sì. Voglio farlo un incontro con le legali.
Ok, allora noi ne fissiamo questo incontro, poi ne fissiamo se vuole anche un altro appuntamento con
Sì,
lei,
volentieri.
proseguiamo. Va bene?
Sì, sì, volentieri. Grazie mille, è stato molto utile.
Grazie.
Arrivederci.
Grazie Federica, a presto.
Hi,
Okay, hi.
can you hear us?
Okay. So I think at this point, before we sort of do a review of what we had said before, and hopefully you have noticed in this mock model interview, we'd like to know if, okay, we see, okay, we're reading some of your comments. He is limiting her social interaction too. Yeah, so if you notice anything, if you have questions about the story, or we're here today to look at the way we approach and listen and build the project. And we're very eager to hear what you see, if there is anything new, or this is something that is completely familiar to you. If you have any questions about how something is done, we tried to translate. We hope that listening to the Italian gave you a sense of the nonverbal and the what comes through the tone of the voice, and then we tried to give a translation that allowed you to focus on the meaning, trying to also give a little bit of this going softly back and forth, both on the part of the woman and of the two operators. You can use your microphones as well if it's easier to speak as opposed to writing in the chat. if you don't feel like saying anything, we can proceed now to sort of provide a summary of the things that we had said before. Okay, so there is a problem with connection. Can everyone else hear us? What was it? Could you see
can't
the
activate microphone?
Oh, okay. Can you write your if it's not too long to write, if you have a question.
I had a similar interaction with a mother victim of domestic violence.
Okay. So you had this kind of interaction as an operator? What is interesting here, it's something that we're curious to know.
In the garden as a psychologist.
Okay, good. This is very important today that we are saying this, and this exchange, because teachers and psychologists are a very important source of exchange for us to bring women here, also to have the right attitude so that women are convinced to come to an anti-violence center. What is very important, we always say, is make sure that a woman knows that coming here has no consequences. We're not doing anything without, that is not her decision. So what is the next question is, what is the next step you take if the woman says she is not ready to follow the next steps of the process of separation? What we say is, it is up to you. It is up to you. We are here. We make you really no pressure to go one direction or another, but if you will have noticed that as we gather information from the woman, we also repropose her story to her, rephrasing certain things, representing to her what he is doing, showing the cycle and showing the pattern of what he's doing, renaming certain things that he does, and also letting her know. You see, we do the awareness, the risk assessment in a way that is not mechanical, but it gives her, we give her back, our feedback is that it is violent. In fact, we recognize that she is, in a way, resisting and enacting certain behaviors so that she tends to limit the kind of actions, not so much reactions, because really things that he does are not responses to anything that she does as if she's provoking.
And I think it was also clear that for that woman was not so easy to think about a separation. She doesn't feel legitimate to have this idea, this desire. So one of the results of this first interview was that she decided to have a meeting with our lawyers. That means that she is trusting us that nothing happened, just that. A meeting with lawyers in which she can have a free consultation. For example, understand how it works. If she asks a separation, what that means with children, what that means with civil court, what about rights, familial rights. So after that, if she is not ready to meet our lawyers, we can plan for another interview here with us. And we realize that is really the relationship is possible to create the square in which everyone trusts the other one, is possible to make step by step a project. So it's only relationship and trusting one each other.
Yeah, I see a question about if we give her additional information, for example, useful emergency numbers, or providing her with a safety plan, absolutely, we do that. In this case, as you have noticed, and of course, this is a model meeting, an interview. This was only less than half an hour. I told you that sometimes our interviews last longer. So of course, in a real interview, more details will emerge. We may ask questions. The woman told us that what happens with the children is something else. It's not just a light spanking. We didn't ask details in this model interview about what happened when physical violence happened against her. She says it didn't happen again, but one question we may ask to assess the risk is if he, put hands around her neck. We asked about the pushes. So we definitely say, what the number is for the police. We find out if there are any police stations, or we have two kinds of police in Italy, carabinieri and police, which is the closer one to her home. If there are any places where she could go with the children, things that she could do if she's in danger getting out with the children, and what kind of information she needs to leave so that the man cannot accuse her of having subtracted the minors and all.
And in this case, as you heard, there is also a witnessing violence. So that means that also the children were involved. And as Raluca Gabriela is asking for a familiar situation, of course, this is something very, very bad also for our law. It's something much more un aggravante, come si dice?
Worsening. Well, no, I don't know the technical.
Yeah, in the civil,
it is considered something that makes the crime worse.
Worse,
so
it
is taken into
but we don't have to tell that to anyone, because as we explain, we never do something without the woman. So if she wants to report to the police, she will do that. We can go with her to the police, of course, but we never do that before.
And this is important, because I think your point is there is a responsibility towards the minors. Yes, of course, and we make the woman aware of this. This is where it becomes really tricky, because if she is not doing something at the moment, it is because she feels that the children would be in greater danger.
Yeah.
If she, for some reason, gets out, and then the danger is that the children are forced to see the father, the fear is that they're going to be taken away from her. So this is a very delicate moment. Of course, this is a big part in which we make the woman aware that there is a responsibility towards the minors.
Yeah,
but she's also being very responsible in that her presence is
there is a
something that
possibility.
protects them.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
A possibility to change the situation, but also which is the risk to decide to separate or to make a report. And the risk is, I don't know if you know that in Italy we had for a long time this problem, PAS, parental alienation syndrome. And that means that a lot of women were badly judged in civil trials, and they were accused to be alienating. So all the women has to think about very seriously how to move, because now there is not more this risk, but they are trying to call it in another way. And so we must move we must pay attention. We confront with parental alienation, yes, in Romania too.
Yeah, because women are really in a double bind situation. If they get out, they are exposed to institutional violence, to judgment, to like, you want to take away your children. You notice that the woman says something that we see all the time. The women say, I don't want to take the children away from the father. This is, in our experience, all the women who come here You know,
Yeah.
they are sometimes even worried, like if I leave, they're not going to see their father. And sometimes we have to say, hey, but think about it. It's a father that beats them up and beats their mother in front of the children and does double violence against them. You know, they witnessed violence. And then in this case, we also had the physical and psychological violence directly on the children. Is that a good father? So it's the contrary of the past, actually, what is happening. Women are always worried that in, you know, the good of their children. And of course, we have to be careful because the trust that is built with the woman is not that we're saying, okay, now you reported violence, now we're going to go and say it. And actually, you're going to look like the mother who doesn't protect, because the very fact that she comes to us and tells us is a sense that she wants to do something to protect her children. But up to that moment, she couldn't get out safely and she doesn't know how. So it's a delicate moment. It's not that we want to hide the fact, you know, that something is happening to the children.
A very
But she has to
delicate
build,
situation.
yeah.
In Ukraine, in my country, this problem is number one. A woman doesn't want to leave kids without a father, no matter what can happen with her. Yeah. Very sad reality.
Yeah, so this is why it's important we think it's important the way we act, because if a woman knows that going and reporting violence means that things are going to happen out of her control, then this makes it really, really difficult. And our country has been, there have been complaints from Grevio about the Italian state, precisely for these kind of situations involving the way things are treated when there are minors involved. So we see the problem, but we see that we need to empower women in getting out of violence and being reassured that children will not be taken away from them just because in order to protect them, they have to bring out the violence that happened, and they cannot be blamed for the violence that a man was doing to the children, or for the fact that it was really difficult for the mothers to figure out what was the good thing to do in order to protect them, because in her way, she's always trying to protect the children, even when she stays. So
what do you think? Can we start again with our presentation? Do you have any other question?
okay.
It's okay.
So to summarize what we've been saying and seeing also in the model interview, we can go to the next slide. So you saw the double gaze of the two operators, because two operators is really the possibility afterwards of reflecting on what happened, continuity for the woman, and also in the middle of the interview itself, it creates the possibility of offering a different view, even among the operators. We, of course, if there is a disagreement, sometimes we try to make it in front of the woman. We don't go behind and then we say, oh, what do we say? It's always explicit and transparent. So we make a need analysis. You have seen how we do it. We don't do it in a way where there is an interrogation, but it comes in a very soft way. The violence is unveiled, and we try to do it in a delicate way, not asking and intruding too much. As the confidence builds, you may have noticed our operator was so experienced that she tried to reproduce exactly how agitated and nervous a woman may be when she comes, and how after a while she feels like she has more freedom to tell us, because she feels that a relationship has established. And so she can tell us that, and in a way what she gets back is not a lot of how terrible, but it's okay, so let's see the good things that you have done, and the fact that you already see what it was happening to you. So the value has been taken away from her. What happens in this meeting and interview is that she gets the value given back to her. So we legitimize her experience. We recognize what has happened, the way she has been resisting. And what we do is, you have asked the question, and so you have seen that we, for example, ask about things that she hasn't thought about, other forms of control, such as the control of her telephone, having her password.
Yeah.
But there are reasons why she doesn't want to, change that situation, because this is a moment where she doesn't want the thing to escalate.
Yeah.
And of course, you haven't seen this here, but we always tell women, when you decide to separate, but she knows, it's interesting, she's the one, or maybe it's because it's
She doesn't want to expose herself.
okay, first you do it, then you let him know. It's not something that you can tell him, because that's the most dangerous moment, precisely because the moment a woman decides to get out of the relationship and tells it to him is the moment where he has nothing else to lose, because, she's no longer under his control, and the cycle of violence doesn't serve the purpose of making her come back because, oh yes, well, he's changing. As you see, we guarantee freedom of choice. And we're just checking quickly that if there are other questions in the chat. We start, you have seen, building a project. So we work with the woman in building this project. And in this case, it was, okay, let's see. She said, I know that there are legal steps. And so we say, yes, why don't you see the lawyers? Again, there's no commitment. You just gather information. And then the next time we can see if you think that's a path, we'll build it together, because it needs to be built. You need to be safe every step. You and your children need to be safe. So we need to figure out where you are in the moment, for example, when he receives a letter from the lawyer. And we will talk about that as we proceed towards the last part of this presentation, identifying the network useful to the woman's project, which can be her own network, our internal network, and a wider network, and we will talk about. So we give her information and we make arrangements, and we work with the woman to activate, again, what I said, our internal resources in various areas. And the most important thing is the risk assessment that we make, and we keep making all along, and so we will monitor it even in the following interviews. The operator's role at this point is, as you have seen, focusing on the past, the story that the woman brings, the present, so the moment that we are there with her and we recognize her, we give her back a sense of self-efficacy. She is already resisting and she is aware, and we valorize that. And then we offer her, we start immediately supporting her path to autonomy. And this is the future that she's building. And it starts from the moment when we ask her, so now, what is your desire? What do you want to do? And even from that first meeting, we start building the future with the woman.
Sheila. So the network's role. Since we started a long time ago as an informal women's network, we understand that it's very important to have a dedicated network. So we helped to found our anti-violence center network, as we saw before, and we also we are a historical partner of an anti-violence network of the municipality of Milan. We are now 12 organizations We are different. Someone is inside hospitals, and so they are very different from us because they have to report, for example, in case they became aware of violence on children. This is a very big difference for what regard us, because we are private organization, and so we can really keep safe and protect all the information we receive from the women. What is important of this network of the Comune di Milano is that we meet once every month, and we speak about problems, of course, but we can also work to create common programs, projects, and to be, you know, much more strong and to have a big voice when we want to make a new proposal. Now I want to show you a diagram so you can see how many parties can be involved in a network. Not is the only one, but okay. What I can tell you that we have also a national guidelines that we share with different parties like social services, law enforcement agencies, of course, emergency rooms, and in general, all the health institutions, and with every kind of court. That means civil, criminal, and juvenile court. And of course, with also territorial entities like region or municipality. And what we try to have, you know, a sort of cohesive method and to share a common way of intervention. For example, as I told you before, we use SARA model. Also, if police and both social service, they use a very short version. And of course, both they know that they have to listen at the woman in a very private and safe place in order to guarantee the privacy. And in this way, the woman can feel freely to speak about what is going on. Could happen also that social services and also the police call us to ask if we have the possibility to host a woman or a mother with child, and we can refer, in this case, every time we need to the network municipality of Milano, because we share different kinds of shelter houses. In this case, we have the possibility to pay for the first 2 months, and we call this time emergency support. After those first 2 months, we have to involve the social services that are different. It depends on the area in which the woman is living, and they have to pay for all the time the woman or the mother with the child have to stay in a safe place. We have also to speak with communities, because there is an equipe of educators and psychologists, and they have an assignment as social service to investigate and to observe how the woman behave with children, and then they have to send this report to the judge, juvenile judge, I mean. The meeting of this kind with communities and social services are important in a special way, because, you know, we put in the center beside the woman. This is the way in which we want to be useful, stay beside her. And it's important, especially because we are there witnessing that there is violence in her history, and there is an abusive man. You know, social service they were assigned by the judge to investigate their parenting skills. So they are in some way, they are cornering the violence theme and trying to look at this situation only considering not a man and a woman, an abusive man and a woman, but a father and a mother. In Milano, especially, we have social services that are very concentrate on the co-parenting. So they try to guarantee to the father, also if they knows that he was an abusive man, to guarantee to the father that he can meet the children in those places that we call neutral space. I don't know if you have the same name. I try just to translate in English, but this is the name in Italiano is spazio neutro, in which the father can have meetings with children in the presence of an educator. But we also notice that there is a press charges to change in a very short time the situation and to become a free meeting also with an abusive father. And so we want to stay in those kind of networks to underline and to remember that there are, for example, a criminal trial that is already running, or that the woman is still living in a psychological violence because he is menacing something with messages and so on.
Yeah, I think it's important also to know that in Italy, we have a law 54, I think, what year, what was it, 2006, I think, that it was approved. It seems to be a law that it talks about parenting, equal parenting in a way, bigenitorialità, co-parenting. And the problem with this, given with all, the prejudices in society, it was also reached at the request or the understanding of a request of women that men would do their part. But the thing is that there has to be a recognition of difference, the different relationship, of the fact that a woman carries the child and there is a special relationship there. There are special needs. And so it cannot be a flat 50-50. Also because men usually what they want is to care of the children only in order to take them away from the mother and to hurt the mother. And this desire to be with the children comes up usually only after the woman decides to leave. There was no desire before. You saw in the interview, in the modern interview, that she says he either is violent towards them or me in front of them, or he ignores them. And this is a case that we see very, very often. But now we have a law that wanted to do good. And the problem is that together with the prejudices that are at work in society and also in courts, is unfortunately becoming a way of judging women and trying to it erases the violence. As long as the man says that he wants to be with the children, sometimes in a very obsessive way that should alert us. Instead, it becomes like, oh, wow, he wants to do this thing. So we absolutely have to make sure that he can be with the children as much as he wants, even when the children are afraid of him. And then, the cycle of blaming women for theoretically, trying to make the children feel this way, when in fact, the children are afraid for a reason.
Yeah. Of course,
sorry for interrupting, but
was really important. As you can see, we put also territorial committee. The territorial commission has a precise understanding with us, and Milano, they used to send directly to CADMI the women that they are used to meet, to interview for the commission, to give them statement of asylum seeker. But in the next meeting of 20 March, our colleagues will explain better how we work with. And we put also attorneys because it happens very very often that we are called from other lawyers, not only the ones of CADMI, to go to in the court during the trial to refer what the woman told us during all our meetings. And this is a way to witness that, for example, the violence was existing since an amount of time. And at last, work and housing. This is not our work-related area inside of CADMI, but something that is very useful when the women has to be to go out of the communities or the shelter houses and look for an independent house. So we built a very useful network of housing organizations, and we are also connected with the public organization of housing, because being abused woman, they have the possibility to get this kind of houses. And as you can imagine, it's a very important thing to have a house with a low rent. Do you have any question regarding this kind? But it, you know, is not really exhaustive. Every woman can have a more complicated network or a more simple one, but we try to include the most party, or we can go ahead.
Yeah, at this point, I'd like to just stress the method. So in order to work in network, the approach needs to be multidisciplinary, and it needs to be coordinated among the services. But it needs to put the woman's needs and her choices at the center of the intervention. And this is where we think it's important. It's not meeting and deciding a project for the woman and propose the project. This is where things become difficult for us, but again, this is our role, and this has to do with being clear about the competencies of the Anti-Violence Center. Sometimes we feel that we're not that welcome. We feel that we're seen like the woman's lawyers, which we're not. We're there to strengthen the woman. The woman has to be at the center and ideally has to be there. But of course, in some situation when she's not, we have to be there for her. And what we do this is in total transparency with her, because it's not a society that decides in network what to do for her, what's good for her. She has to be at the center of what she is doing. And this is, I think Lorena gave you a clear picture of the fact that it's very complex because of, you know, the different ideas that people in different entities, public or private, have about violence. The one thing that we really do is try to make everyone aware of the difference between a conflict, where they want to reduce everything usually to a conflict, and violence, where power is acted and becomes what makes it very difficult for the woman, impossible for the woman to be free. So there has to be a coordination of interventions. And again, we feel that the Anti-Violence Center should be more and more at the center of this, precisely because of the subject and not object role of the woman. Yeah. We need there has to be a sharing of her goals, and of course, man, you always have to be open to the fact that by listening, you have to understand what is going on and have to be ready to change and integrate.
Different assignments also, of course.
Yeah. So the woman can ask us to do different things. She may add to her project. So a networked effort is effective when the net is composed of elastic, modifiable parts that are resistant to expansion and contraction. It cannot be something fixed that has to be that way. The paths also, you can build new ones, you can have new links, and it can totally change the way the network works. It has to be something really not rigid. Rigid sounds more like, and that's exactly where a woman sometimes feels she is in certain situations. And so one thing that we do is try to bring our knowledge through relationship also, not just with the woman, but also with the other entities that we meet, because we think that's the only way to really create paths out of violence. So a network contains, but it does not bridle. It cannot be absolutely a prison for the woman, or, you know, of course, then she will say, well, better perhaps to face the violent man than to be in a different kind of prison. It has to leave space for the woman to express herself directly. And so to summarize this, it has to speak with the woman and not gather to speak about the woman. So thank you for your attention. I don't know, I think we used all our time, but if maybe you think that there is one very, very important thing to clarify, we can, I hope most of you will be here also with us next time. So maybe we can also, you can also bring them there, because
we ran in this last part, but we understand that our time was finishing. So sorry for that. If you want to ask something to us, we are here.
Thank you, Lorena and Ilaria, for your presentation and for this session. And we invite everyone to attend the next meeting next week on the 20th of March, when we will focus the session on your methodology with women with a migration background. And just last information for the participants, I'm putting in the chat the link to the evaluation form, because we need to collect information from the participants in order to evaluate all the session. So all the participants will find the link directly in the chat. And for those who need the certificate of attendance, we will send you directly. And also, if you agree, Ilaria and Lorena, we would like to share also the presentation with the participants, the one you used today. Is it possible?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And also the link to YouTube, because I know that you you upload on YouTube the interview. Is it open?
Now, for what regard video, please let me check with the other people here in CADMI, and then we will let you know.
Okay.
Because we have to understand all what regards privacy and so on.
Okay.
Of the operators. Okay.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the video of this presentation will be on YouTube, right? So,
but
okay.
Only with the link. So we will tell you something about that.
Yeah,
okay. Because someone asked for the link, so to see again the model of the interview. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We will tell you in very few days.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who participated, and we look forward, hopefully, to see you all again.
Yeah. Have a nice day.
See you all again. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.